Hello to everyone. I'm happy to be here with you, and as we are a little late, we will go fast. So, a market overview for researchers. When I read the title, I said, yeah. Okay, so we tried to go and to do this with 10 slides. So probably the first question is it a useful job to look at the market for health? Yes. If we realize that during the last century, we gained 45 years of life expectancy. And this gain is mainly due to new drugs, antibiotics, vaccine, also to access to food and clean water. But okay, the market is still here, is a useful one, and this can be translated by numbers in terms of life expectancies. So, second point, the consequences of this progress is that now the people or the population is changing. So during the new century, we will have to treat new type of patients. Today, in between today and 2050, we will be more than 2 billion of people over 60, meaning that this will create new pathologies, and also some other pathologies will disappear due to the progress we made with the other drugs. We know already which type of disease will appear. We know that linked to normal aging, immunosenescence will come, and we see already that in cancer, immunotherapies and vaccine, we have to work with that. We know also that cancer linked to aging will come. More and more patients will have or declare cancer, only linked with the aging process. We know also that physical function will be reduced for many people. We know that mobility and disability, for example, will be one of the new challenges in terms of market. And we know also in terms of cognitions that cognitive aging decrease will be one of the key issue in terms of market for healthcare. If we look at the key numbers in terms of worldwide drug market, as a researcher or as a researcher from the basic research, we need to think about billion. We are more than 1,500 billion of dollars for the worldwide market for drugs. We have also to realize that 50% of this market is in the North of America, meaning that when we will analyze the market and the numbers of patients, okay, keep in mind that half of the value of your project will be done by the US market. And finally, we need also to think about the investment for our current project, and we will have to spend billions of euros or dollars, okay, to develop our current project. So, okay, be sure that you assess the right numbers with the right skills. The other point which is really important is that today half of the planet have no access to new drugs. If you look at the two rings, you could see that this is China and India, representing more or less, I would say, 50% of the planet. They have access today to only 20% of the new drugs approved by the different regulatory agencies, meaning FDA, EMA, and the Japanese one. So when you look at how many patients I have to treat, okay, this morning we saw one example of patients with 1 out of 1 million people, okay, Keep in mind that the main part of your patient accessible to your drug will be based in Europe and in US. Do we need to use a startup in life science to go with the market? Yes. Yes, this type of group of startup is very flexible, is very agile solution. So this allows us to stay in the competition, to stay ahead of the race, because, okay, we will create an attractive climate for new healthcare solution, and we need also to use that to improve the healthcare system. So yes, a startup is. The proof for that is that today, last year, when we look at the type of compound approved by the FDA, 37 compounds were approved. 24 out of the 37 are coming from small or mid-sized company, so meaning to start-up company. So this is really a key point today. The innovations need to be, I would say, need is maybe not the exact term, but has to be performed in a flexible and agile corporate groups. The other point in terms of market and for researchers is we need to know who are our competitors. And I had in the titles perfectly, meaning that we need to know what will be the added value of our project. If you look at the field of immuno-oncology in cancer, there is today more than 4,000 projects. So when you apply to for funding or for a grant in immuno-oncology for new drugs, you have to ask what is the added value of your project. Who will invest in your project for which reasons? Are you better than the benchmark? Are you first in class, best in class, fast follower? You have to work on that. The other point is also for your market evaluation, you have to ask the question, when I will reach the market? Meaning that we know that we need probably 10 years before entering in the market. What will be the market in 10 years from now? What my competitors, which I identified in the previous slide, will be in 10 years. So for me, I know that I need to better define the date of application of my patents, but I know also to know when I will terminate my project, when my molecule will get the market access approval. Finally, okay, for us, before entering in the market evaluation, I need to go with the product labeling, meaning that I need to know exactly where or which patients I will treat with my drugs. When I make this exercise, I'm able to define what could be the market, but the first step is really to define the type of population that you want to address with your innovations. And for that, we will use target product profile. So it's a tool which is well known by the industry. And with this, you could evaluate all the assets that you have in your hand and all the assets that or information that the market wants to have. And based on this difficult exercise, which is a continuous one, because every day you will receive information from your own research, but you will also receive information from the external companies, and this will feed your process. This will be an iterative exercise to position your compound in the market. If you are better than the benchmark, if you are better than the current competitors in development, okay, keep going. If not, okay, try to think about the situation of your project. So you have on this slide some webinar where you could go further, or you could call me if you prefer. This is just an example of a target product profile section that you have to document on your project. Even at the starting of your project, you need to know if you go by oral route or IV route, and this will change the qualities of your chemistry approach of your project. And finally, just to let time for Amanda, yes, we will go and assess the market, but we need to know what is the labeled product that we want to use. And also we will go using a tool named a target product profile to work on this point. If you have questions, I think we will do just after the presentation of Amanda. Amanda, the floor is for you. Thanks.
So thank you so much, Grégoire, for this overview. So now in the second step of this workshop, the idea is to make a focus and make a point on extracellular vesicles market. And please just keep in mind that the roadmap is the same, no matter it's CAR cells or extracellular vesicles or gene therapy. Extracellular vesicles market are there just to illustrate, but the principle is the same. So what I propose is to start talking about an external analysis, an internal analysis, and then segmenting, targeting, positioning. So the idea is you have a forest, and with this kind of roadmap, it's going to be easier to know which trees to look at. So just to make it more simple. So concerning the external analysis, it's very important to have an idea of the global market, the potential market. It's important to understand the competition. Which are the companies? Which are the pipelines? Which are their clinical programs? So, and also the market trends. What are the drivers? What are the restraints? And to understand the funding activity and the alliances that are going on. For extracellular vesicles, I'm going to pass really fast because, as again, I told you just to illustrate. So for extracellular vesicles, the potential market, you have advanced drug delivery systems, you have regenerative medicine, anti-tumor therapy, and you have a kind of niche strategy with orphan indications. So what is interesting to see is these markets are really huge. And what's really important to notice is the trend, the growing trend of these markets. Because when we look at the market, you have to keep in mind the perspectives, the midterm, the short term, and the long-term perspectives of growth. So we mapped the companies, the most important companies, and it's interesting to take a look where these companies are based, in which stage they are, and what's their focus. So we mapped the patents of these main companies, and what is interesting is we use a model. It's the Richard model theoretical curve, and you can see here a projection of how these patents may evolve. And with this model, we can kind of predict, when it's going to reach saturation and at which level, at which stage we are. And concerning the extracellular vesicles therapeutic market, according to this model, we are still in the growth curve, in the growth stage of the curve. So again, here's, you can see the pipeline of two companies that were created, were co-founded by academic scientists with some clinical programs already finished. And here are these programs for these companies. And the most advanced one was Kodiak. So a huge funding activity. So it went public. It means now it's you could buy the shares of Kodiak at NASDAQ, for instance. And Kodiak and also Evox, another academic-funded company, they had a very intense alliance activity, getting interested, getting involved, big pharma in their capital. So now we come to the internal analysis. The internal analysis, you look inside your project, and which are the questions you should ask yourself, your colleagues, your team. So I listed just a few questions here. So at which extent the value of the product can be superior to the costs? So when you answer this question, you can assess how can you create value with your future product. And the question is, for whom are you creating value? Are you creating value for patients? I hope the answer is yes, because if the answer is no, I think that is a huge problem and it's better to rethink the project. Are you creating value for payers, for buyers, for regulators and investors? So the answer should be yes, as you can imagine. So another important point besides this value analysis is the value chain analysis. So which are the steps that are critical to create value when we are creating value? And for which steps can you overperform the competition? And for these steps, you can overperform competition. You identify your competitive advantage. And it's very important to have a clear competitive advantage, to have identified this. So after the following step in this tentative roadmap is to have a kind of segmenting, targeting, positioning, to have a market stratification, and then you have a segment analysis and a value proposition. So in the segmenting, you have to scan all the possibilities of therapeutic indications. So I'm going for metabolic diseases, I'm going for rare disease, I'm going for oncology. So after you are going to assess patient demography, as Grégoire said, it's very important to have an idea because it's going to have a direct effect on the market, the size that you are addressing. So the medical story of patient, what patients are you looking for? And then you go to the targeting. For the targeting, you have to consider your competitive advantage. So consider my competitive advantage, which segments I'm going to choose. How is the competition in the segment I think I can be present? And should I consider a niche strategy? Should I go for a kind of rare disease and have some regulatory advantages? So once you have analyzed all this, it's time to position yourself, to define who is the target patient. How can I create value for this patient? So this way you identify your value proposition. Then you define the therapeutic indication, the target product profile, as Grégoire indicated. And then I would like to finish. Thank you for your attention. And we have a kind of souvenir of this workshop. This is a kind of tool with a kind of screening questions you can ask yourself during these 3 steps. So the idea is not a kind of take-home, it's a take-home message, and also to capture your attention about these questions. So once you see this information passing, you can capture the information in this file, and you keep them registered. So this way, you can accumulate information and can be useful for even if you don't really have the startup project defined, you can keep accumulating this information that can be useful. And so thank you a lot for your attention. And if you have questions, Grégoire and me, we will be happy to try to answer them. Thank you.
when you make your projections, do you take into account the impact of global warming or the fact that the environment will change, so new diseases will become more prevalent, or can you make some projections in a way?
The projections about the maturity of the projections about the growth of the market?
Yes, so clinical or medical needs will be changing with time, possibly significantly, so there might be new needs.
Okay. Grégoire, then I can go on.
You have to, okay? Because you need to know where will be your patients. So we know that, as you said, with the climate, okay, we know that many people will move. So we will know that many people will join regions where you have different laws, different regulation, different price determination of your drugs. So you have to take this in account, and especially if you are at the beginning of your story, because this will be a question for 2040, 2050. So at this time, the situation in terms of population, the figure will be very different from today.
So you were talking about uncertainty, right? Because there is a lot of uncertainty. And I just would like to take profit of this question, to talk about uncertainty. And for instance, what I consider a business case is the bankruptcy of Kodiak. I told you that Kodiak was a very active company, and it was successful in raising a lot of money. And what's very interesting to notice is that Kodiak went bankrupt. So, for instance, in our case, we have startups on extracellular vesicles. It was a very sad day. It was a very sad day when learning about that, because when you consider that a company like this, that was at NASDAQ, went bankrupt today, how can I have a chance to go on? So I just would like to address this and talk about the pioneers' advantages and disadvantages, because when you are the first, it's great for patenting, because you have much less anteriority and it's easier, but there is a lot of immaturity in the supply chain. There is a lot of immaturity regarding the regulation. And the complicating factor here was the stock market, because once Kodiak announced the results of the first clinical trial, the actions, they went down almost immediately. So I would like to, when you're talking about uncertainty, to answer your question, I would like to show you this Gartner hypercycle, because I like this a lot. It explains some trends that sometimes we are not aware. Because when there is a new technology, there is a lot of expectations. There is a peak of expectations that you can see here. And then this peak, this goes down, because we notice these expectations are real. So the pattern, if you can see here, if you match the second and the first picture, you can see a kind of pattern match in this peak of expectations. And what is interesting to notice is that this Gartner hypercycle is in fact two curves that are combined. If you remember the maturity curve that I presented you before, and you combine to this expectation curve, you get this Gartner hypercycle curve. And then if we combine, we use it as a proxy, the stock actions for Kodiak, for the peak of the expectations. And we have this for extracellular vesicles market and biotherapy. So according to this model, yes, we got a drop, but the next steps is going to be an enlightenment. So it gives some hope, and I think it's an interesting way to understand uncertainty, and this is why I would like to share when answering your questions about uncertainty. Sorry, it was long.
Question for the audience. who is currently looking at the size of the market for his current project? Who has already applied for patent? 3, 4, 5? And no idea about the size of the market? 1 billion, 10 billion? One patient, 2 patient?
Yes, it was 60 billion per year in USA, but the project did not work. The treatment was not good enough.
Okay.
It was cell therapy for cardiac failure.
Okay, so you stopped the project not based on the market assessment, but
No.
on the quality of the project in terms of services,
Yes.
on the other services.
Yes, we went up to phase 2, but it was not efficient enough.
Okay, but it's good to do. Okay.
Yes, it was very interesting to speak and deal with all people like you and jurists and clinicians and so.
So do you have a second project or backup project?
Oh, not yet, no.
Not yet. Okay.
So thank you. I think we can finish this workshop, and thank you a lot for your attention.